Today, I'm joined by Jessie Hathcock. Purpose and impact are woven into Jessie's DNA. For over 20 years, she has led in education, nonprofits, and the business community, always with a heart for helping people reach their innate potential. As president of the Loading Dock and founder of Scale Simple, Jessie guides leaders and organizations to align purpose with strategy, unlocking growth that's both conscious and sustainable. Her work centers on stewardship, belonging, and ushering in a new reality where people and businesses come fully alive. Jessie is based here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm excited to have her on the show so that we can all learn from her unique leadership journey. So, Jessie, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's good to have you on the show. I'm so glad that we could do this. And I should tell our audience that I met Jessie while doing research into resilient leadership. And I loved her story so much that I wanted to have her on the show so I could share it with all of you. So let's set the stage real quickly. So tell us about the loading dock and Scale Simple.
Absolutely. So, the Loading Dock is a three-location co-working and co-warehousing community here in Raleigh and Wake County. And I've been with the company about 6.5 years. Started off as community coordinator, which is sort of an assistant type position, and now I'm president. Came in at a very interesting, pivotal time in the organization and have ridden the waves to where we are now. So that has been quite the journey. And then Scale Simple really came out of that journey. I did not have any business experience prior to this role, worked in education and nonprofits, and so have really learned as I've gone. It's been a whirlwind, and I made a ton of mistakes. And so Scale Simple is sort of this conglomeration of tools and resources and strategy and just things that I really wish I had when I was scaling the loading dock. But have sort of, built tools, worked on best practices, found best practices. And so, if there's any small business looking to grow or scale, I got a nice toolkit to help make that possible.
I love it. I love it. And I love what I love about the journey. And for those of you who didn't catch it, she started at the loading dock as a coordinator, community coordinator, and now she's the president. And she did that during the basically the pandemic, during COVID,
Yep.
which was a very unique time, especially in a co-working space where this is a people, we have people coming into a co-working space. So you have all the challenges of people, and you've got all the challenges of growing a startup business,
Yes.
and you have all the challenges of a COVID, our first pandemic in a long time. So you had a massive amounts of challenges that you had to deal with. So take us back to the moment where you were kind of thrust into a leadership role at the loading dock. What happened, and what was going through your mind when you finally realized that you were the leader of this organization?
Yeah. It was quite a journey, and I will just piggyback on what you said about just the timing of everything of this journey, on top of everything professionally and just in the world that was happening. I also experienced a very traumatic pregnancy. I lost my dad. I lost my aunt. Marriage was hard. I mean, there was just so much going on at the time. So it was definitely a wild time. But speaking of resilient leadership, it was a master class in that. So I'm grateful to be on the other side of it now. But oh gosh, and with that, tell me your question one more time. Sorry.
Well, just in terms of like, what was it like when you sort of realized that like
Oh
the,
yeah.
the leadership of this startup organization is falling onto your shoulders more and more?
Yeah, so I came in, and right when I had joined the loading dock, we had signed two leases for small locations. Um, there wasn't a ton of infrastructure in place to support that growth. Like literally, we had signed a lease but didn't even have furniture for one of the locations. So there was a lot going on. And then we were also working on signing two very large leases for our current locations. So there was a lot of moving parts. I quickly realized there wasn't, again, not a ton of infrastructure to support that level of growth. And I quickly started thinking, like, okay, if we are going to sustain this thing, we need to work on standard operating procedures. We got to work on mission, vision, values. We got to work on just like some framework as to like who we are, how do we operate, where are we going. Um, when all this was happening, our founder, Philip Freeman, who um, was also scaling Murphy's Naturals, which is an all-natural mosquito repellent company. And that's how the loading dock was created. He needed flexible workspace to grow his business, hence the loading dock, first co-warehousing company in the world that we know of. And so with that, he didn't have a ton of bandwidth or time or brain space to really think about the loading dock. I came in, I've always been a mover and a shaker, saw the need and was like, all right, let's get to work, And so just sort of started chunking away at it. We also at one point quickly hired a director of business development and also someone who had been in like startup world, strategy world. Philip had a big dream of having 30 locations by 2030. Thankfully, that has slowed down. So we were trying to rapidly scale a very uh, infantile business and had massive growth trajectory. So it was sort of like drinking out of a fire hose. Like, how are we going to do all this? Um, Long story short, quickly realized that's not a great, like, that was just too fast of growth for co-working. So we had to make structural changes for the company. Those two positions were eliminated. Again, Philip was so busy with Murphy's Naturals. And so at that point, it really was like, all right, you're the person. And I had many conversations with Philip where I was like, you absolutely need to hire someone else for this. Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't have any business experience. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm figuring this out as I go. And he was so patient with me and believed in me way more than I believed in myself. And I'm so glad he wasn't just like, all right, well, see you later.
Yeah.
He just sort
So,
of let me
yeah,
have my moment.
tell the audience what you were doing before you were at the loading dock. I think it's very interesting too.
Yeah, so I taught middle school for 5 years at two low-income middle schools. I had 127th graders at one point. And so, if you can handle 127th graders, you can kind of do anything. So that was my first career. Second was I started working in the nonprofit world, and I was the business relations manager for a nonprofit that had a job training curriculum. So they needed companies to hire people who had been chronically unemployed, whether that be through incarceration or just, sometimes disability or whatever it might be. We were kind of helping them build those confidence and soft skills to get into the workplace. So my job was to go find all these businesses to hire about 200 graduates coming out of our program in Wake County. And what I learned from that is like, oh, business can actually be a force for good. Like these people aren't just money hungry. They actually really want to make an impact in their community. And the best way for them to do that is through hiring people. Like my mind was kind of blown. I had always had such a passion for purpose and meaning and thought the only way I could get that was through service of a nonprofit or, an educator or whatever it might be. And then I saw these business people like really care
Hmm.
and want to use their business for good. And I was like, that is so compelling. And so whenever I'd made the switch to move into the business world, I knew I wanted to work for a business that cared and made an impact on the community and was very purpose driven. And so found the
Yeah.
loading dock, which
And
was
you
great, or
have,
it found me.
yeah, and you work for such a great leader who has that in his mindset too, which is great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, yeah, Philip is an exceptional leader. He's been on the show before too. So,
Yeah.
I don't know what the episode was, but it was a long time ago. So it was
Yeah.
during the pandemic
Oh, yeah.
where Philip was on the show. So when we talked, when I was interviewing during my stuff that we were doing for my doctorate, the term we came up with was reluctant leadership. That's what we
Yeah.
sort of got a sense of, is that you sort of were thrust into a role that you didn't necessarily plan on being in. So like a lot of people that are listening in, they might find themselves in the same kind of
Yeah.
situation where they don't necessarily didn't start off to want to be the leader, but they sort of stepped up when things got tough and said, I'll take ownership, and
Yeah.
suddenly they find themselves in leadership roles. Um, can you give some advice to people that end up in a situation that like that, and why do you think some of the best leaders don't set out to lead in the first place?
That's a great question. Why does some leaders not set out to lead? My story is interesting, and I can't even remember if I shared this when we were talking, but I have always been a leader, like looking back.
Hmm.
And I got a full ride to NC State, and I did that because I was student council president and I was leading this community service group and I was doing all and I was like leading the pep rallies from the, bottom of the gymnasium, all the things. Like I have always been a leader. And then frankly, and hopefully this isn't controversial, but I went to a very like conservative church and when I went to college, and those were very, very formative years. And they said multiple times, like from the pulpit, like women essentially should not
Hmm.
lead, like they should be at home. And that's what I saw. And I had this really sort of identity crisis because I'm like, well, my faith is really, really important to me. And I feel like I knew I was going to be a principal. Like that was my path. Like I knew that I was going to lead an organization. But then when I coming out of that place, I was just like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't lead. Like maybe that's not actually a part of my path. And so the last year or so has really been kind of this as I really set out to find my vocation and like my real purpose in life, a huge discernment process. Um, I have come to the conclusion that yes, I am a leader
Yeah.
and I'm called to that and it's a huge stewardship
Hmm.
thing for me. Like it's uh I think leaders I think if you set out to be a leader because you want the title or the compensation or whatever, like that comes from a place of ego, like you want all those shiny things. But if you really look at the call of a leader, it is to serve, it is to shepherd, it is to grow, it's to create impact. Um, you're kind of this catalyst for others' growth. And that is like a very um, humbling place to be of like, wow, I have been entrusted to care for these people and shepherd their well-being and all these things. And um, so yeah, I guess if you're kind of setting out like I'm the leader, it's like, is that coming from a place of ego or is that coming from a place of like truly you understand the role of what a leader is?
Yeah. Yeah. I often say that the best leaders become a leader to make a difference,
Yeah,
and sort of the weaker leaders do it to make money.
right, exactly.
And so I think that, I always say, if you want to be a leader, ask yourself why, right? Why do you
Yes,
want to make a lead? Why do you want to be a leader? Well, if you say I want to make a difference and I think I can, that's different. That's saying, follow me. That's
yeah,
the standing up saying, I may not have all the skills, but I have this. I really deeply believe in this organization, so follow
yeah,
me, and we'll go places,
we'll
right?
figure it out.
Versus the person that's trying to have lunch with the boss and try to dress like the boss and play
Yeah,
golf with the boss or
yeah,
whatever, just to get into that role. That's a different kind of person, isn't it?
absolutely. Very different. Yes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
very
Very
different.
interesting. So, as you mentioned, you stepped in the role. You're sort of learning. I always say, learn while you burn. It was one of those like
Yeah,
everything
that's
was
good.
thrown at you at one time, right?
Yeah,
And but over time, I think when we discussed it, like your personal mission, vision, and values became really important to you, and they started
yeah.
shaping how you led, especially when things were kind of crazy. Can
Mhm.
you tell us a little bit about like personal mission, vision, and values? Why these are essential to leadership?
Yeah, I'm so passionate about this topic because I think, leadership is not for the faint of heart and if you don't have a really strong North Star, it's like, why am I doing this? It can
Mm,
feel you can burn out quickly, but when you have that greater sense of purpose, that's the thing that kind of, for me at least, keeps me going. So when I was a teacher, I worked at a Stephen Covey school. So that was our magnet program in Wake
okay.
County Public Schools. And so our focus was around the 7 habits of highly effective people. And I've always, again, been interested in leadership, had a passion for leadership, but I learned so much working at that school. And the 7 habits are based off of 20 years of research of like, what do the most successful people have in common? And it's these 7 habits. And so I'm like, well, if that's been researched so much, like I just need to follow the 7 habits and I'll hopefully be highly, highly effective. But one of the activities we did was on creating your personal mission statement. And so mine is helping people reach their God-given potential. Um, which which honestly for the last year or two when I was really wrestling with my vocation and really figuring out like I just don't know if this is it for me. There was a point where I was like, I don't want, because I was so burnt out, I was like, I don't want to help everybody else. I just want to like go be a masseuse and not talk to anybody for the rest of my life. Like literally, I was like so close. Um, but the more again, the more I sat with this calling and this stewardship of leadership and growing people, I was like, no, this is really cool, the level of impact you can have. And
Yeah,
particularly being in a co-working space, I'm like so passionate about it now because we have 1,300 members and we have 450 companies.
yeah,
And like we did a member engagement survey last fall, and 82.5% of people say that the loading dock has improved their well-being. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. Like that means over 1,000 people's well-being has improved by being at the loading dock. And those 1,000 people most likely have 3 to 5 relationships that they are closely intertwined with, whether that be business or personal. And hopefully those relationships have improved because that person's well-being has improved. And you just think about like the compounding impact of leadership, but particularly leadership within co-working because it just touches so many people, industries, all of that.
yeah. It's an amazing place. For those that are not here locally, I am. So I get a chance to go into the loading dock, and we
Yeah.
have one here in Wake Forest, which is my hometown. And I was there for opening day, and I saw what the potential could be,
Yeah.
which was exciting. But now going back today and seeing what it has become, it is just a high energy place. As you mentioned, 450 businesses in the different locations, and what 1,300 people, is that what you said?
Mhm.
Yeah, 1,300
Yes.
members. What an amazing opportunity to help. I mean, you're basically helping companies, or creating a place for companies to be able to launch themselves and get into
That's
the
right.
world, and start their businesses. I started my business in a co-working space,
Yeah.
way back, 10 years ago. So I know what
Yep.
that's like. You have nothing.
Yep.
I just needed a
Right.
I needed a cubicle and a phone and an
Yeah.
internet connection
Yeah.
at the time. And believe me, my co-working space was nothing like the loading dock. I would have killed for the loading dock. We had a cubicle in an old, I think it was an old bank. It was
Yeah.
terrible, but yeah. So I think the energy there, and so like you said, that you can, the fact that you can impact so many lives through business is amazing. And one of the things I was going to say is, as I've studied leadership over the years, I didn't know of a term called transformational leadership. And when I
Yeah.
learned about it, I said, well, that's probably more like what I am. And transformational leadership says that you help people reach their fullest potential in
So, yeah.
pursuit of helping your business reach its fullest potential. So
Right.
when I think about that, it sounds like you have a transformational leadership sort of approach, which is your mission is to help people reach their God-given potential, what they've been put on
Absolutely.
earth to do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's a gift to be a part of it and get to see. And we had one of our members who had just started, or she was like one of the first members at Wake Forest as well. She was just getting her company started. She was going through a divorce. I mean, it was just like it was during COVID. It was a really hard time in her
Yeah.
life. She came back last week or the week before, and she has 3 locations now. She runs like an adult daycare center for aging adults, and she is crushing it. She's like personally, professionally, just was glowing. But what was so cool is she was like, I am restarting my membership because I love the energy of this place. I love being around, the different people here. But to hear a story like that and see her success, like that was one story, but those things happen weekly, daily,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's amazing.
I love that. So one of the things you do is you also help organizations sort of align purpose and with their strategy. Now, where do you see, what happens when you get this right, and what happens when you get this wrong? I guess I was thinking.
Yeah, one of the things that has compelled me and created this love of business is because when I worked in education, again, I'm all about impact. And when I worked in education, I know that I had an impact on my students, but from a systemic level, the ship is so large. Like for there to be systemic change within the educational system is like very hard because
Hmm.
again, it's too big and you can't pivot and have the agility to like respond in the moment. It would take years to get, to have that level of response. And then when I worked in nonprofits, I was like, this is really cool. It's very impactful, but like funding is such a struggle,
Mm. Yeah.
and there's so many nonprofits nowadays, like the competition for the funding even is it and um it's challenging. It's a challenging industry to be in. And then I thought of business and I'm like, okay, particularly small business, I'm like, they're agile.
Yep.
They can pivot quickly. They have money to like make a difference and invest in the communities. I mean, you spend most of your life at your job, right? So like if you can be a great employer, a great place to work, that's going to improve other people's well-being. So like it just kind of compounded of like, wow, business really is this powerful vehicle for impact and change. We are a B Corp at the loading dock. I took the company through the B Corp certification and we recently just got recertified. And for anybody that doesn't know, it's a very, very rigorous process. But B Corps have a triple bottom line. So instead of just pursuing profit, you're pursuing people, planet, and profit. So in any business decision you're making, you're considering how does this impact our people? How does this impact the community? How does this impact our consumers or our members or our clients? How does this impact our suppliers and our vendors that we work with? And then you're also thinking about like a sustainability lens. So every purchase you're making, like, do I go local or do I go big box? Right? Do I get the cheaper styrofoam cups that will never disintegrate in a landfill, or do I pay a little bit more to be socially responsible for a compostable cup, right? And so like as a conscious leader, you're thinking through all of these different pieces. Um, yeah, and it's challenging to do that, but it's also fulfilling and neat to have the opportunity to.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that speaks volumes to that. So people listening in might say, "Well, B corporation, that's a lot of work." I mean,
Yeah.
it'd be easier just to use the styrofoam, right? It's cheaper. I'm a startup company. I don't have any money,
Yep.
and so. But one of the things that you and I talked about when we talked about what happened during the pandemic with the co-working space is that you grew
Yeah.
people, and even when they couldn't come into the facility because of trying to social distance,
Yeah.
they were still paying their membership fees
They were.
because they believed they were part of a community.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something special. In other words, there was a feeling, and I'm advertising for your company now, but
Yeah.
there was a feeling in the loading dock, and I'm speaking for some words that you said and others as I've interviewed, is that there was a feeling of community, and they felt like that you have always taken care of them, and they wanted to take care of you during these tough times, and so you actually were successful during the pandemic. You grew a startup company that grew during the pandemic in a role where there had to be people in a location, and yet you still grew. And I think that's something to be said about
Yeah.
someone might say, well, the B corporation is, that's a lot of work. And, why should I care about suppliers? Why should I care about people, the environment? But it actually helped you, I think, build community, and people felt, they were part of something and they wanted to support it even through tough times. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really attribute that. Of course, Philip and Carter, the guy that started the loading dock community, was always a huge heartbeat of what we have done. Clark Reinhardt was the director of community, so he's who hired me, and he did such an incredible job. I mean, he knew every single person's name. He made every single person laugh. He knew everything, he knew everything about their kids and their family and like their business, and he was just so intentional with our members. So yeah, we had just launched two campuses in September. That's when I came on, and then March, everything shut down. But it's like that one main location that we had really sustained the other two. And it was because the level of community that was there. Um, One of our taglines at the loading dock is do well, do good, better together. And Philip's whole philosophy is like, you can and should do well. Go make a lot of money. Go crush it in your business. And then go do good with that.
Hmm.
Right? Like go invest that back into your people. Go invest that back into local economy. Go invest that back into the nonprofits that you care about. Like take that profit and not just for your next jet or whatever. Like use that for investing and creating impact for the things that you care about. And he's just such a great representation of that. So even when, we had no money, we're not profitable, we're losing money, like we still donated 2% of our revenue to nonprofits,
Mm.
primarily through in kind, because that's what we had to give. We had space. And so we're like, yeah, come use it. But to be able to be that generous, even when we were not in a profitable place, I think set us up for the success that we're having now, where we're 99% full. We're having record-breaking months. So many people know about the loading dock at this point, but it was that period of like faithfulness and generosity, even when things were very tenuous as a company. Uh, you see that kind of the fruit of it now,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So in other words, doing the work in the tough times, has paid off. It
Yeah,
sounds like, yeah, it's paid off. I mean, you were
yeah.
doing it as a startup company. That's the sort of thing that's remarkable about it. It's like some people say, well, once I become profitable, I'll do X, Y, and Z. Or
You're
once,
not going to.
yeah, you're not going to,
You're
right? So
not.
you got to do it when you're, when it's hard, right? And
Yes.
it's easy to do things when it's easy. It's hard when it's hard. But I
Yeah.
think what you're saying is it's paid off in dividends for the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we actually did a series called A Case for Good, where we partnered with a few different organizations last year to really teach businesses there is like literal ROI by doing good. You're going to attract better talent. Your employees are going to be happier. Consumers are like 80 something percent more likely to choose your company over another company when they know that you're giving back and making an impact. I mean, it's like the numbers are remarkable, and this is a fairly researched thing. Like we're not just saying, "Oh, go do good for do good's sake." You can do good and also do really well as a company. You're actually going to outperform your competition because you have that sense of purpose. The consumers love that, your employees love that, and ultimately the good is going to compound and come back to you too. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. I want to ask you a question because, and it's I didn't tell you I was going to ask this question, so I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
That's okay.
One of the things I've noticed is I've talked to the leaders in your company and also in Murphy's Natural is that you guys aren't professional managers. You're not the people you would think of that would be that you would hire in a startup company. You all come from really unique backgrounds, but yet you all share the same passion and the same
Yeah.
you know you're all driven in the same way towards doing good and being good stewards and taking care of the people around you. How do you hire? Like when you're hiring at the loading dock now, what do you look for? Do you look for skills or are you looking for the right attitude or personality? I'm curious to how do you keep that going as you bring in brand new people from off the streets?
Yeah. Honestly, I hiring has been such a huge journey for me personally as a leader because
Yeah.
coming from a low income school, I was like, I just see the potential in people, right? So
Okay.
I would hire and be like, oh, these people have great potential, but they were not
Yeah.
what we needed for growing, so
Right.
we've actually gone through a lot of teammates and changes and all those things. It was fairly tumultuous for a while because I just didn't really know how to hire well. But now at this point, it is so much about personality and it's so much about willingness and grit and problem solving. You have to have such a high emotional intelligence to be in co-working because again, every community manager has, you know, close to 500 people at their campus. And all those 500 people have their own baggage and industries and struggles and all the things. And so our managers are constantly reading the room, responding, reading the nuance, reading through the lines, all the things. It's a really unique role. And so, yeah, I mean, we continue to learn like the type of profile that will be successful in our space, but I'm more and more and more confident in hiring for values fit.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, and I know I teach when I'm teaching college courses. We look at case studies of Apple and Nike, and they both in their evolution as companies they went to hire professional managers at one point, and they realized that they suck. like professional managers kind of stink, and they needed to hire people that had the passion towards their
Right.
products and the things that they were trying to do in the world. And that's when
Yeah,
they found their best employees. It wasn't the professional, managers, if you will. It was the people that had the passion towards the products and had the
that's
passion
right.
towards the culture they were trying to create. Those were the people that helped bring their business to the next level. So it sounds like Loading Dock has found that as well. It's not the professional marketing person or the professional community coordinator or someone that
Right.
has decades of running co-working spaces.
Yeah.
It's the teacher. That's what I've seen. A lot of teachers. I've seen it's just
Mhm.
very interesting group of people that are part of this very successful organization. So they
Yeah.
are not the people. They are not MBAs. I don't
No,
see a lot of MBAs. So
no, they're not.
yeah,
But incredible humans,
yeah,
and very
exactly.
talented and all
Yeah.
the things. So
I love that. I love that. Well, this has been a fantastic discussion. I love your story, and I'm so glad you're able to share it with our audience. What final message would you like to leave with our listeners?
it's a good question. I think going back to your question around like mission, vision, and values, I think as a leader, that's one of our primary jobs is to cast vision, is to create culture. One of my favorite analogies is like as a leader, you are not taking the temperature, you are setting the temperature. And without a really clear mission, vision, and value, it's hard to set the temperature and culture that you need. And so I think organizationally, that's a non-negotiable. You need to have that clear so you can attract the right people. That's going to repel the wrong people. Like there's going to be synergy there if you're hiring for values, because you're already seeing the world through a similar lens. And then personally, I also think you need to have your own set of mission, vision, and values because as a leader, you're constantly making decisions, weighing options, and your decisions impact other people. And so you need to have a really clear sense of who you are as a person and where you're headed and all those things because again, it can be a slippery slope and then that impacts so many people. So like just kind of doing the inner work um, to be the fullness of yourself so then you can then go shepherd and grow and nurture the fullness of others.
I love that. Yeah, because I think if you're not centered, if you don't have a goal and a mission, and you're very clear on your values, when the storms come, you get blown away.
Yeah,
When the
absolutely.
when the temptations come, you get blown away, right? So the
Absolutely.
great leaders they've thought through what's important to them, and so when
Yeah,
these things happen, they stay strong and steady, and they're
grounded.
focused on the mission. So
Yeah.
such great advice. I love that. I love that. So, Jesse, how can people find out more about you and these businesses that you have?
Yeah, so the loadingdock.com is our company business. Our company website. We'd love for you to explore that. We're also very active on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me there. And then for the Scale Simple side of things, I keep it truly very simple because I have a very full plate being a mom and running the loading dock. But it's just scale-simple.com if anybody wants to explore more about that as well.
Okay, we're going to put the links in the show notes, and I can't not let you plug Murphy's Natural too, because maybe if you're not local, you may not get to the loading dock. But if you anywhere you are in the country, you can get Murphy's Natural, which is what you could describe the company or describe the
Yeah.
products that. Yeah.
They're amazing and they actually work. So it's all natural mosquito repellent. It's primarily lemon and eucalyptus oil. He uses very high quality essential oils and it works so well. So my favorite personally are the incense sticks. So I light one because in North Carolina, there's a million mosquitoes in the
Yes.
summer. You light one and like it truly creates this barrier. And my husband is like a mosquito magnet and it works so well. So huge plug. You can find it on Amazon, Costco,
It's
REI,
all over the
Walmart,
place. Yeah, it's
everywhere.
nationwide. So
Yeah,
and again that's an exciting part of it's sort of your sister business, if you will.
absolutely.
So it's very or maybe bigger brother. I don't know what you call
Yeah.
it, but you
Parent
guys are
company.
related.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but so we'll put that the show notes in the show notes
Perfect.
for Murphy's Natural as well because that's a big part of what you guys do as well. So
Yeah.
Jesse, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Thanks again. When I met you the first time, I was like, I've got to have you on the show because I just love your
Thank
story
you.
and I love your passion. So thanks for coming on the show and sharing your story and your journey. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate having me.
Thank you very much. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.